So the bottom line here, I think, Jim, is that the intention of endowments has changed over the years. The cost of going to, especially the Ivy League schools, have gone up. Last week we covered this in the video, that the rate of inflation over a 40-year period was 236%, when the cost of enrollments, the cost to go to college, went up 1,200% in that same 40-year period, right? So
Right.
It's a foregone conclusion that the cost of going to college has gone up across the board, some more than others, but that's just the bottom line. And most of the Ivy League schools are for profit, and they don't, they're not claiming not to be, but I don't understand how they qualify for tax-exempt status on a lot of their funding sources. I don't get that. And what I wanted to do is put a shout out there, if we could happen to maybe find somebody that maybe worked for an Ivy League school, to set the record straight. Maybe we're totally off base here and we're not understanding this correctly. But we'd love to have a debate. Maybe there's a college professor out there that, think that we're full of crap and wants to get on and tell us that in a friendly way.
That could be something.
It just, I was a business owner for many years. You were in this world, this education world, for a long time. And, I think we're both reasonably smart people. This just doesn't stack up for me. I just don't understand how this could work this way. And anyway, the idea of it is, you have to go to college for certain things. There's no doubt about it. So I guess if you have to, you're going to go to some of these schools. And I think if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or, a professional person, and you're going to get an postgraduate degree for whatever it is you're going to do, I think there's a pretty strong argument that, getting a degree from an Ivy League school will probably help you.
Sure.
But, what I'm seeing is that there's people that are at a disadvantage, that don't have rich parents, that are smart. God gave them their brains, right? And they could do this, but it seems that the business model has changed. It's the endowment flow of cash to the underprivileged potential students out there has changed, and it's really restricting opportunities, right? And I just don't. It just doesn't. Something doesn't stack with this whole thing.
No, and well, two things, two items I'd bring up. Number one, you asked earlier about why somebody hasn't done something about this, government-wise or whatever. Think about where the people that are primarily in the top echelons of the government have come from. Probably most of them are alumni of these organizations, especially. It seemed like I read an article, I don't know, a few years ago that most of the presidents of the United States either went to Princeton, Yale, or Harvard. Okay. So,
yeah.
Just what are they gonna do about it? They're not gonna pick on their own alumni or their own old colleges, And then I think the other part of it is the nonprofit issue and the tax issue that needs to be rethought. If you're going to maybe I don't think maybe you need to tax it as much as maybe set some standards that require that colleges commit certain percentages of their income or their endowments into student financial aid and helping these students out versus federal. They're federal now, even though they go through the banks, but basically federal student loans of high interest that may or may not be something that somebody's going to have to pay back. Mostly they're going to have to pay them back regardless. They can't even get out of them with declaring bankruptcy. They're stuck with it. So between that and the financial aid reality that is needed versus what a lot of these big colleges are providing. Um, there needs to be some kind of guidance, if you will, for these colleges to spend their money where it
Hmm.
was originally intended. And quite frankly, Harvard with what 42 billion, and they're bringing in 2.5 billion in tuition each year. It'd take them a few years. They could just about run it as a free school for several years, um, with no tuition fees at all for students for what 20 years.